Well, there's another report, another blue check mark, Dan.
Okay, blue check mark doesn't mean what blue check mark used to mean.
It's called The Standard. Blue check mark on Twitter. Their tweet is breaking with the sirens.
Okay. The Standard.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are reportedly in the final stages of negotiations to acquire wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk from the San Francisco 49ers. The deal is expected to be finalized soon, as both teams appear highly motivated to reach an agreement. Here's how I know this is a bunch of BS. The 49ers are not highly motivated to trade Brandon Aiyuk. Neither is Brandon. I'm telling you this now. I'm telling you, you can see this. You don't need this report from me. He doesn't want to go. He does not want to be traded. I know what you're sitting there going, but Mark, he requested a trade. How could he not want to trade? He doesn't want to be traded. He wants the 49ers to pay him, and requesting a trade was the only thing that he could do to make the 49ers believe maybe that he's serious and really upset. But you don't request a trade and then show up the next day.
Takes a little bit of the bite out of it.
He showed up. He goes to meetings, for God's sakes. He does not want to go.
Well, there's also two different things. There's request to be traded and demand to be traded. Usually when you demand, that's when you don't show up. When you request, yeah, it's like your kids requesting to have ice cream after dinner. That's cute. Eat your veggies and maybe we'll accommodate, but most likely we won't.
I love that you did a parenting reference because this is actually a great example of a fake threat, which is what I think Brandon did. Okay? You do this with your kids all the time, unless you're really, really calm and thinking about it. Because when a kid is acting up, and you remember this having boys, because boys, when they're 4 and 5 years old, they're complete nut jobs. You can't get them to do anything that makes any sense. It seems like they try to kill themselves every day. They're running around the street. They're on roofs. They're on top of refrigerators. They're all over the damn place. But the example I always use is like if you take them to Disneyland and they're acting awful and you walk through the turnstiles, you just dropped $700
minimum
just to get your family through the gates. And the kid is like rubbing boogers on other people. And you want to threaten them. You better shape up or we're leaving. No, you're not. No, you're not.
Dad, I saw your ATM receipt.
You don't want to leave. You can't leave. You won't leave. You got to be careful that your threats are actually something you can follow through on. And Brandon Aiyuk just threatened to leave Disneyland. I want to trade. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because now the Niners are like, dude, we're not budging. All right, if you really, really want out of here, like, okay, I guess we'll make some phone calls and see if somebody can make this sort of worth our while. And what do you see? Brandon doesn't want to do that. Brandon doesn't want to do that. And nobody wants to give the 49ers what would make sense for them, which is you got to compensate us with a receiver, you got to compensate us with draft capital, and you've got to pay Brandon Aiyuk $30 million a year. Like, it sort of gets to the point where it's like, dude, you got to question the mental fortitude of the teams that want to do this. What the hell are you doing? You want to give up a draft pick, multiple players, and $30 million a year for Brandon? He's not that good.
Yeah,
like,
he might
good
be.
God, calm down. He's not, you know what I mean? He's not Jerry Rice. Like, relax.
This from around the NFL on Twitter, and they've got a gold check mark, which...
oh, that's different.
And they've got, I think, 890,000 followers. Brandon Aiyuk more likely to be traded than sign extension with 49ers. No trade in place. And this is per Mike Garafolo and Tom Pelissero. So those are at least bigger names of, reporting that, this thing seems to be very fluid. And Mike Garafolo on his own Twitter said this is maybe the most fluid situation that he can remember where it feels like the dynamics of this are changing almost by the hour.
I think the Niners are saying, dude, Brandon, look, if you're really this mad, like, we're not going to budge. This is our last deal. If you're really this mad, we don't want you to go. But gosh, if you're this furious, we'll make some phone calls for you. But we're not doing anything that's, the Niners are highly motivated to get this. No, they're not. No, they're not.
I think they're highly motivated to get this thing off of the
distraction.
Right, the headlines, and get this thing to be in the past, which means come and play football, Brandon. It's what you want. It's what we want. But I don't know if there is even a contract that's still out there for Brandon Aiyuk.
It doesn't make sense, quite frankly, for there to be one from the 49ers. I agree with you. So anyway, the reason I was bringing up Larry's name is this report from The Standard, blue check mark. He retweeted that one too, but this time he wrote, legit report?
With a question mark.
Yeah, by the way, so I read what The Standard is. You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
The Standard, 5,900 followers.
Okay.
Everything Steelers related.
Oh, there you go.
Hot takes, team alerts, score updates, giveaways, and more. That's The Standard.
Giveaways and more.
And more. So, Larry, no, it's not a legit report. And if you want to know about Twitter and blue check marks from people you've never heard of, I give you Tom Pelissero on the Insiders from NFL Network.
Well, Mike, it depends if you choose to listen to people who bought blue check marks on social media to pretend that they have information. And then the scam, as they do it, is they take real information, bits and pieces, and then they try to do the fake thing where they say, this is now done, where they're really just guessing and they're hoping, and then they just pretend the 9 things they got wrong didn't actually happen. And then they'll just be like, when they get one right, they're like, oh, look at this over here. So no. There is no trade done to the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is no trade done to any other team. No, the bro hug and the dap the other day does not mean Brandon Aiyuk has agreed to terms on a new contract with the San Francisco 49ers. What I can tell you, since this is the Insiders, and this is a show that you should trust for accurate information and not whatever somebody's decided to aggregate and misrepresent for their own benefit, is that there certainly have been trade discussions surrounding Brandon Aiyuk. In fact, certain specific other teams have been granted permission from the 49ers to speak with Aiyuk's agent, Ryan Williams, and try to work out a contract that would have to be a part of any deal getting done. Now, that has a couple of effects here. One, of course, is that it allows Aiyuk and his agent to see exactly what the market would be for a contract someplace else. It also does potentially allow them to get closer to finalizing a trade, but we're not there just yet.
Okay, so that's Tom Pelissero, and yes, within the report, he also pow, 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 pow. It's just, rapid fire shots at everybody who's on Twitter right now saying that Brandon Aiyuk has been traded or is about to be.
Yes, and as he should, but what he also outlines in that is that Brandon Aiyuk's agent has gotten permission to be contacted or contact other teams just to see what that market might be for Brandon Aiyuk. And I think that that's interesting as it pertains to what the Niners are offering and what other teams are offering, because he's going to get a better gauge of exactly what Brandon Aiyuk might command if he was to go to Pittsburgh, New England, or fill in the blank team.
Well, and I'll tell you what, like in a second, I'm actually going to tell you why this is very, very nice of the 49ers. People want to talk about how there's no loyalty or love in business. I think what the 49ers might be doing, actually, it's almost like heartstring stuff, because they don't need to do this. They do not need to do this, and they are. More on that in a second. File that, because the comment that you just referenced from Mike Garafolo about a trade being more likely than an extension, here it is.
What seems to be clear is that if and when he is traded, and I would say we're closer to a trade than we are to him staying in San Francisco at this point, he is going to make more than the 49ers offered him. How much more? That might depend on the team that he winds up with, because it sounds like some teams have been a little bit more aggressive than others with regard to the financials. But Aiyuk has a few destinations in mind. One of them was Washington. He made that clear as he made the social media videos that he posted with his buddy Jaden Daniels here. We have not heard Washington and the Commanders bubbling up as of recently, as far as them being one of the top contenders right now. Those other teams that have been mentioned, yeah, they're in play as well. But again, Brandon Aiyuk seems like he is going to be a rich man once he gives the green light and once the 49ers have the trade compensation in place with whatever team they're going to trade him to.
Okay, this is super interesting. The Niners don't have to do that.
Right.
They're essentially treating Brandon as if he's a free agent when he's not. So the comp to this, and again, I'm freely admitting this, it might be annoying. I watched too many sports documentaries on my vacation. But if you are all familiar with the Hard Knocks conversation about Saquon Barkley that the New York Giants had, it's been a viral video. But just to give you an idea of exactly, sorry, something caught my attention there. That's pretty funny. Anyway, if you're not familiar with how the conversation went, the Giants GM calls Saquon's agent, and then he calls Saquon. And after months, because quite frankly, this has been going on for a year and a half between Saquon and the Giants, after months of this, they're like, look, dude, you're a free agent, and what I don't want to do is make you an offer. You think it's too low. You get mad, and then you're actively trying to go to another team just to spite us. So instead, why don't you just go on the open market, go find out what other teams are willing to pay you, and then please, before you sign anything, come to us. You said you want to be a Giant, so come to us, and if we can match that deal, we will. Done. Now, as it played out, the numbers got too high, and the Giants said no. And that's exactly what the 49ers are doing with Brandon Aiyuk. He's out there aware of the fact that there are other teams who will offer him more. Now, the 49ers could easily be like, cool. So here's the play we're running on the next down. We don't care that somebody out there is willing to pay you more. We're not. You're here. Here's a helmet. They could do that.
Yep, but they're not.
And they're not. And I think that we'll see how this plays out, but I'm not saying that just throw them a party or something like that, but they don't have to do that, and they are. That's worth something to me.
It's worth a lot, and it's worth a lot on the open market as well. So let's just play this out in a way that it might conclude, and let's say that Washington is telling Brandon Aiyuk's agent, we're going to pay you $30 million a year. We're going to give you the Amon-Ra deal. We really want you. Our young quarterback really likes you, and we want you to be a Commanders. We're going to give the Niners a first-round pick, or we'll give them a third-round pick and Terry McLaurin, and that's going to be the deal.
Yeah.
And the Niners say, whoa, that's a pretty good package, and, we're going to go ahead and do that deal. Well, even if that goes down, what that says to the rest of the National Football League is, wow, the Niners wanted to do right by their guy. They sent him to a place where he wanted to go. They got fair compensation, but that was really cool that the Niners did that. So if I'm a free agent player and I see that the way the Niners are conducting themselves is that way, it's going to make me even more open to being a 49er, as opposed to the other thing, which would be, no, Brandon, your agent can do whatever he wants. You're a Niners, and you're either going to play on the fifth-year option, and then we might franchise you. You get nothing.
Right.
Good day, sir.
We're going to tag you. By the way,
and then other free agents see that, and they go, whoa, that's how you're going to do? That's how you're going to do BA?
You know exactly who did this recently. This is the way Washington conducts themselves.
Exactly.
They did this to Trent Williams.
Yeah, exactly.
They did this to Trent Williams. And yes, Washington's reputation around the league is not what San Francisco's is. So yeah, I agree with you completely. And maybe it helps explain the midfield handshake between John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and the bro hug with Brandon Aiyuk. Because this to me sounds like, at least, what the tone of the conversation is. It's not, Brandon, get your helmet. We don't want you. That's not the tone of the conversation. The conversation is, look, Brandon, here's the spot in which we're stuck. Okay, this is the financial sort of fallout of having all of these high-priced players on the team. We love you. We think the world of you. We want to give you every dollar that we can give you, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's matching what you want. So here's another option on the table. We don't want you to go anywhere. We want you to be a 49er. But if you just can't wrap your head around that, then sure, we'll make some phone calls for you. And yes, your agent can make some phone calls. And boy, Brandon, if that's what you really want, like if you want to go play with a rookie quarterback just because he's your friend, Brandon Aiyuk seems to be making team decisions right now the same way kids make a decision about where to go to college. Well, my friend's going there and there's a beach. Well, great. Like, I don't know. How's the school? Like, what are you planning to do with your life?
Exactly.
Brandon wants to go be with his buddy? Okay. The Washington Commanders? I don't know, man. I mean, Terry McLaurin has never played a meaningful game in his life. So.
Well, if you went to Terry right now and said, the Niners want to acquire you in play, and they want to send Aiyuk to Washington, and you get to be a 49er.
He'd drive across country.
Exactly. And that's where, he is in his career, and he already has his contract, and Brandon doesn't. So Brandon, I think, first and foremost, according to TJ Hushmanzada, he wants to get paid. And then secondarily, Grandy was actually doing it great last week. He was doing the high-pitched Hushmanzada.
I like it, the high-pitched hoosh.
Yeah, the high-pitched hoosh. And so he wants money, and he wants to win. He wants to just play football, but he wants to get paid. And if getting paid means you go be a commander, then so be it.
He ain't better than me.
That may be the way that eventually goes. So I don't know. It seems more and more.
Yeah.
And I was of the mind that he was going to get traded before the draft. And you actually even asked me, you said, what do you think? On the spot, make a call. And I said, he's getting traded.
Yep.
And then he didn't get traded. And so since then, I'm like, he's not getting traded.
Well,
but now it feels like he might get traded.
I know. But the wild thing is you're like, it doesn't make sense now.
Right. Makes no sense now.
Which is why I still sit here and question whether it's going to get done. Because, again, there's so many steps on the staircase. Brandon can be like, okay, found it. Browns want to give me $30 million. My agent's ready to go. I'm ready to sign. Cool. What are the Browns doing for us? You're not a free agent. So, what are you giving us? I heard Steiny and Goo be like, Amari Cooper and a 2? I'd do that in a heartbeat. I wouldn't. That's not enough. It's nowhere near enough.
Well, you're in a seller's spot, too.
Exactly.
Brandon Aiyuk doesn't have the leverage to force you to make a trade.
Aiyuk is a 1. He is a first-round draft pick that people want to give a second contract to. That means his value is a first-round draft pick. And, oh, by the way, there's not a draft right now. So that's a double problem. You have to overpay for that. So if Brandon's worth a 1, I'm not doing it for a 2 that, by the way, doesn't even happen until another season has been played, in which we're trying to win a Super Bowl. Now, you may say, well, what about Amari Cooper? Okay, what about Amari Cooper? I get him for 1 year. I have to pay a big number. I get him for 1 year and 1 year only. Plus, he's got to learn my system. Plus, he's got to block downfield, and I don't really know for sure exactly how that looks. Plus, he's got to get on the same page with Brock Purdy and get chemistry. And we got to do all of that in 4 weeks. I'm sorry. Amari and a 2 is not enough. You need more.
Plus, he's 30.
I might need a 2 and a 3.
Well, yeah, and I personally...
And does Cleveland want to do that?
I doubt it. I would doubt it.
Yeah.
And I look at Amari Cooper, and I think that Brandon Aiyuk is better right now.
He is better.
And you got Amari Cooper, who's in his 30-year-old campaign. Like you said, he's going to be gone at the end of the year. So then what? You're kind of in the same spot as if you just have Brandon play on the 5th-year option, and then if he walks, then you still need a receiver.
So I wonder how all of you would react to this. Like play GM right now. 888-957-9570. What would you do if you were the 49ers? Once again, Mike Garafolo, NFL Network.
What seems to be clear is that if and when he is traded, and I would say we're closer to a trade than we are to him staying in San Francisco at this point, he is going to make more than the 49ers offered him. How much more? That might depend on the team that he winds up with, because it sounds like some teams have been a little bit more aggressive than others with regard to the financials. But Aiyuk has a few destinations in mind. One of them was Washington. He made that clear as he made the social media videos that he posted with his buddy Jaden Daniels here. We have not heard Washington and the Commanders bubbling up as of recently, as far as them being one of the top contenders right now. Those other teams that have been mentioned, yeah, they're in play as well. But again, Brandon Aiyuk seems like he is going to be a rich man once he gives the green light and once the 49ers have the trade compensation in place with whatever team they're going to trade him to.
Okay, so this is where you're at. This is what we know. The 49ers at one point put an offer on the table. Brandon didn't like it. The 49ers are not willing to move further. They have to try to win the Super Bowl this year. They have a game in 4.5 weeks, okay? Or is it 5 weeks from tonight?
5 from today.
5 weeks from tonight.
Yep.
The Jets are in town. You got a game in 5 weeks. You have to figure out your starting wide receiver position, but Brandon refuses to practice. He is emotionally cratering about this entire thing. He has requested a trade that he probably doesn't even really want to have happen. So you're the GM. What would you do? What would you do?
Hot shot. What would you do?
What would you do?